Not the bees is incredibly hard. So what if I made it even harder? That's right, I'm playing it on master mode. Okay, fine, I get it. That's not hard enough for you masochists. What about bee weapons only? Yeah, I'll use the Terraria bee mod for some extra weaponry to actually make this challenge even possible in the first place. Come again? You want me to push myself to the brink of insanity for your own viewing pleasure. You want me to die so many times. Even the mention of a bee brings me PTSD. Fine, have it your way. I will do vanilla master mode Terraria, not the bees, no starting weapons, no nothing, just bees. Are you happy now? Are you happy that you've done this to me? I don't even know why I don't even know why I do this. So I start off my world with basically no way to kill any enemies. I start cutting down my first tree and instantly get bombarded by some bees that I cannot do anything to. And we have our first of many deaths. The first thing I decide to do is go into a cave on my left. I find a life crystal and instantly die. Master mode, not the bees, with no weapons to start is going to be insane. I'm literally just constantly dying to everything. And by the time it's nighttime, I've gotten a little bit of bamboo, some wood, and that's about it. But I make a platform up and start making some houses that are elevated, and then I try to make it to the cave, but the enemies prove that to be very difficult. So I start getting to work on a tunnel system, which will hopefully allow me to get to where I want to without having to bump into any enemies, including those incredibly pesky jungle bats. One big problem I had was I had no way of seeing anything. I didn't have any torches. I also couldn't get money so that I could buy torches, unless the merchant killed an enemy near me. I used the fallen star to see for a second, but it didn't really help, and I died by a giant Shelly. Now I can't just start a elevator, at least not easily, because stone has been replaced with hive, which spawns bees whenever you break it, and also spawns honey. But I got my first kill. I blocked myself off, broke a hive block, and led the bees to a slime, which killed it, and I got some gel, which allowed me to make torches. That's right, that is one of the only ways I will be able to kill enemies for a while. Not the bees is an environmental hellscape. It's maybe the worst environment I've ever seen in a video game. It is dreadful, and I can't do anything about it. Now, I was stuck. The cave I was in led to nowhere, and I saw a cave on the left, so I decided I'm gonna start digging through the hive, which proved to be incredibly difficult. I had to mine it with a wall between us, and then block off the bees by leading them up. It was an incredibly ridiculous game, but it ended up working out. And I finally found a cave with a minecart, and we're 50 minutes into the playthrough at this point. Now, on Not the Bees, there are little larvae that spawn, which spawns the queen bee if you even breathe on it. I found a pinky, and I used the same strategy of breaking hive blocks to spawn bees, and the bees killed the pinky. Because if you didn't know, bees that break from hive blocks actually target enemies as well as you. Back at home, it has become a graveyard biome just because I'm dying so freaking much. But that's just what I needed, because I can use the graveyard biome to make beehives with 5 hive blocks at a heavy workbench. Now this is the only weapon, if you can call it that I can use for a long time. All it is a placeable bee trap that you can use to spawn bees. But the bees will be aggressive to anything they see, including you. And I got some fantastic new armor, including a lead helmet and some mahogany pieces. We're dripping. I continue to traverse my way through the world very carefully, blocking myself off from enemies. That is my best friend, is just not letting any enemies touch me and killing them with the environmental bees. I still have yet to kill any enemies by my own hand. And I finally find my first chest with a cloud in a bottle in it. That took me an hour and 25 minutes. I then accidentally spawned the queen bee. I then decided to do some testing on another character to see if this was even possible, because I realized that bees don't attack bees. So how am I going to kill the queen bee later on if I can't use the bee trap with the bees to kill the queen bee? But I actually noticed a cool little mechanic, that being that the queen bee actually takes damage from other enemies. So I will have a strategy for the queen bee, and it will possibly be possible, but it will require us to beat Skeletron first, and we'll get into that later. Now, I was pretty dang stuck on what to do. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I decided to explore on the right, and I found the desert biome with an underground desert, but I kind of got slaughtered very quickly. I found another chest with the flare gun, which is absolutely useless. And after dying, I got enough jungle loot to make some jungle leggings. We're moving up in the world. Now, unlike in the Zenith Seed, the crispy honey blocks don't actually drop lava. I was fully expecting them to, but they don't. Found another chest with an extractinator, and I made a golden helmet. I then started tunneling to the right side of my world. The hive blocks in the way proved to be quite the challenge because I can't kill the bees that come out of it, so I have to find my way around them or die brutally. Eventually, a man-eater got in the way, so I had to find a way to get some bees to kill it for me. I then accidentally spawned the queen bee, and I made it just far enough so that I could make a run for it to the underground desert. The underground desert is nice because there's no hive blocks here to spawn bees. I actually feel like I can dig around and do what I need to do. That is until I died brutally because I don't have a weapon. I finally made a safe way to the underground desert and continued my ventures there. Desert fossil is helping a lot. I found a desert chest and got a magic conch. I then went over to the crimson and smashed a couple crimson hearts. I then used the magic conch, went to the ocean, if you can call it that. It's just a big puddle of honey and honey blocks. I died so many times in this playthrough. It was insane. I'd spend so long traversing down into the caves safely and then just dying in a stupid way. And 4 hours and 20 minutes into the playthrough, a goblin army spawns, but I'm not even remotely ready for it. I went deep underground and got a lava bucket because there's no way I could ever kill this goblin army without some lava, and I'm not going to reduce myself to that torture. So I made a small little area of lava with one issue: the goblin sorcerers. They kept shooting at me and they wouldn't stop. I also let free my lava. So I have to go all the way back to the covens and find some lava. While I was down there, I found a chest with a magic mirror in it and some more life crystals and some good loot. And now we are max health, finally, after 4 hours and 53 minutes. And now I just wait out the goblin army, swinging my pickaxe to break the purple fireballs, dying constantly, and finally, the goblin army has been defeated. I then head back to the underground and I find some Hermes boots, and now I have a full set of jungle armor, purely for defense because mana will do nothing for me. I then use some gravity potions and explore the Sky Islands. I get a shiny red balloon and a lucky horseshoe. I then found the bound goblin underground just for him to be murdered. So inconsiderate. But I soon found another one. I made a tinker's bench, but I did not have enough money to buy some rocket boots. That is probably because I've been murdered so many times in this playthrough, it's ridiculous. I then feel an evil presence watching me, but I just ignore it and stay underground because I will 100% not be able to defeat the Eye of Cthulhu right now. I then went over to the actual jungle, which isn't covered in hive block. It's actually a miracle. So I got some jungle loot. I buy some rocket boots from the goblin tinkerer and make some specter boots. Now I feel like I have some footing on this playthrough. I'm able to traverse better. I finally feel like I can survive at least a little bit, although I can't do a whole lot about the enemies. I then once again feel an evil presence watching over me, but I decided to ignore it because I had other plans. I went down to the underground desert and continued to loot there, but I died by a tomb crawler, which means the Eye of Cthulhu spawned. I'm kinda almost dead, but I decided to fight this boss anyway. I used the nurse heal to stay alive, which I don't do lightly. I don't usually do that. And then I guess the gods wanted me to win this fight because a fallen star hits the Eye of Cthulhu twice, doing near 2,000 damage. So that made this fight considerably easier. And then one comes so freaking close to hitting him again, but I'm just not strong enough to beat this. I ran out of hive traps and I have no way to kill it, and I end up dying with it almost being dead. With it completely turned in my favor, I still lost. I then kept throwing myself at the underground desert trying to find a bar statue to give me that extra defense. And I actually found a hornet statue while in the underground desert. This was an incredible find and will be vital for our success later on. But let's put a pin in that for now. I searched far and wide in the underground desert, still not able to find a bar statue. But after a lot of exploration, I finally found it. And then in the chest right next to it, there was a second one. That's just typical, isn't it? I then started farming hive block just so that I could make some hive trap. It took me forever just to get like 120 of them. It takes a really long time to farm. I decided to start bombing hive blocks, which seemed to work a little bit. But the nice thing about the Not the Bees seed that makes this somewhat possible is that there's lots of hive blocks, like an infinite amount of them basically. So that means I can make an almost infinite amount of bee traps. I then decided to try and find the shimmer, so I bombed down with scarab bombs nearest to the beach, and wouldn't you know it, I found it, surrounded in hive. Little predicament though, there was about 100,000 bees after me, but like the gamer I am, I trapped them all in a little box. I then got the permanent upgrades I needed, and now I'm going to fight the Brain of Cthulhu. Considering this boss will allow me to progress quite a bit further, my preparation was pretty bad because I dropped the hive traps and they went straight into some honey, which I didn't know this, but that means that no bees spawn. And then an evil presence watches over me. This time I'm going to be as ready as I can be. I make a little box to put my bees in and lead the eye into it. This would have been a much better strat before they nerfed bees. The bees take quite a while. They do barely any damage, but at least the eye doesn't do that much damage to me. And eventually I just realized I could grapple to the roof, constantly take damage to the servants of the eye, which meant I usually wouldn't get hit by the Eye of Cthulhu and just take constantly 1 damage. And I just let the Eye of Cthulhu dash into the bees and take constant damage while basically taking no damage at all. And it worked like a charm. Eventually the Eye of Cthulhu was defeated, and that's our first boss down. Now, am I gonna use the Shield of Cthulhu in this playthrough? No, I won't. I then started fishing for armored cavefish. I made it actually possible to defeat the Brain of Cthulhu with some more setup, and this time around it's actually going decently. The creepers are dying very quickly to the bees, and very quickly it's just the brain left. Now, a strategy I had to use was the bees would go after me, so I'd have to lead them into the right brain. If the bees are closer to an enemy than me, they'll switch onto that enemy over me. So that was the strategy, just lead the bees into the brain. And while I was pretty dang low, I did defeat the brain, and that's our second boss defeated with only bees, pre-queen bee. And now the dryad moves in, so I'm finally able to plant some grass seeds to hopefully get some day bloom to spawn, because I haven't been able to get any of it. I finally made it all the way down to hell. I get a hell forge and spawn the queen bee at the same time, and then I jump into the lava and start digging some hellstone. Once I have enough, I make some molten armor. I start bombing a bunch of hive to get as much hive traps as I can get, and then I start making an arena for Skeletron. Now this boss will prove to be pretty freaking difficult. I have to destroy his hands first, and that's kind of hard because the bees will target the closest thing to them, and sometimes that's his big fat skull. So I have to make sure I'm leading the bees into the hands, not the skull. The good news is the damage isn't bad. It's okay, it's enough. The bad news is I have to defeat this boss before daytime, and that's gonna be the biggest challenge. Now I was actually able to use the radar to my advantage, which, I mean, I've never used the radar to my advantage. Whoever needs to know how many enemies are near you. But this was really helpful because it showed me how many bees I had on the screen. It allowed me to know when I was running low on bees and when I had to place more. And eventually I destroyed one of the hands, which means his homing skulls are coming, and I still have to destroy one of the hands, but now both have been destroyed and it's just his skull. This is pretty simple. I just have to circle around him, but the hardest part is leading the bees into the skull. I have to position myself so that the bees can attack Skeletron, which is hard because Skeletron outspeeds the bees. The skull is actually quite quick in this phase, which makes it really hard to hit him, and the damage sucks. The only real time I can hit him is if I'm circling around him and they get a couple hits in. And I got Skeletron down to 1400 health before he killed me instantly because it became daytime. Very unfortunate. I then bombed a bunch of hive blocks to make more bee traps. I then challenged Skeletron again, and it's more of the same stuff, very monotonous, leading the bees into the hands. This time I have a watch on so I can know how late in the night it is. Both the hands are destroyed. It's just his skull, which is the hardest part. And this time around, I get him down to 1200 health. And then it turns to daytime and I die instantly. I then challenge him again, and I do even worse this time. I only got him down to 2200 health. These fights are long. They're minutes long, and I just keep losing. But I'm determined to beat Skeletron. We have to do this to progress. So I spawn him again, destroy his hands, and now it's just the skull. I continue to lead him into the bees, being more methodical with my movements this time, making sure I'm moving in the right directions so that Skeletron goes into the bees. I'm willing to take a few hits just to make sure that the bees are hitting him more, because it's more important that he's taking damage than I am. And just like that, I actually defeated Skeletron pre-Queen Bee with only bees, with about half a minute to spare as well. I then headed down into the dungeon and talked to the only reason I came down here and fought Skeletron in the first place, the mechanic. With the mechanic secured, I'm able to get wiring. With that, I make a quarter-second timer, and I set up my ingenious plan to kill the Queen Bee, the Hornet statue. The Hornet statue being wired up to a quarter-second timer means that it's going to spawn hornets. And as I said before, the Queen Bee takes damage colliding with other enemies. It doesn't take damage to other bees, but it does take damage to hornets. And hornets, we are counting as bees. So this is the only way I found myself killing the Queen Bee with bees, technically. A hornet statue to kill the Queen Bee. I didn't even touch the bee. I didn't even have to click my mouse once to beat this thing. It was really fun to utilize this really strange mechanic and using it to my advantage. Now, if I'm able to pull this off, I will get bee weapons from the Queen Bee and actually be able to use a weapon for the first time in this run. And sure enough, the Queen Bee has been defeated. And I draw the bee gun from the Queen Bee. I'm able to use the bee gun. It shoots bees. So there we have it. We have a bee weapon. I didn't have to start with a bee weapon. I actually got one by only using bees. I then fought it again and got the beekeeper, but I decided I wasn't going to use the beekeeper because it's technically not bees. It's a sword. It does spawn bees, but I didn't want to count it. But I also made the hornet staff, which spawns a little hornet that shoots stingers, which I'm allowing as a bee weapon. And then my little hornet decided to shoot at a windy slime and spawn 2 queen bees on the surface. They were both enraged, but I decided to take them on. I'll take on the challenge. I'll fight 2 enraged queen bees at once. And it took a long time, lots of nurse visits. I started regretting it quite a bit, but eventually I did defeat both the queen bees enraged, and I got the bee's knees, which will be my main weapon. I also got the honeycomb accessory, which spawns bees when I get hit, which is very helpful. Now with the bee's knees, I'm able to do proper damage. I went into the dungeon and collected some bone, and went down into a spider biome and collected some cobwebs to make some necro armor. And then fought the queen bee a bunch more times and got a bunch of bee nades. And now it's time to make a hell bridge for the wall of flesh. I kept accidentally breaking the larvae and spawning the queen bee. It's a very easy mistake to make. Now I just want to clarify that I had to use the bee's knees with wooden arrows. And now it's time to fight the wall of flesh. So I throw the guy voodoo doll into the lava. This should be easy. Bees are known to be very strong against the wall of flesh. Bee nades, bee's knees. It's all very good. I chuck all the bee nades I can and shoot some bee's knees at it. Throw some more bee nades. And I mean, the wall of flesh is just melting at this point. I mean, it's easy. It's almost too easy. Not much else to say. I'm just shooting the bee's knees, throwing the bee nades, and finally, the wall of flesh has been defeated. Oh my gosh, we have beaten half the game with only bees on master mode, not the bees. But honestly, now is the hard part. I have to traverse through hard mode with these crappy weapons and beat all the mechanical bosses with them. I smashed some demon altars. I mined some cobalt, make a cobalt pickaxe. Mined some mithril, make a mithril pickaxe and anvil. And then mine some titanium. What's great about the whole world being a jungle is that derplings spawn everywhere. It's just fantastic. I love it. And giant tortoises. But I do make some titanium armor. I head to the skies and fight a wyvern or 2. I then headed to the underground hallowed to get blocks to make an artificial surface hallowed, which ended up working, and I was able to get pixie dust. I got 3 blessed apples.
3, dude. What?
And eventually got enough pixie dust to make pixie wings. I mean, what man can resist those pixie wings? It oozes pure masculinity. I then decided to challenge the twins. It can't be that hard, right? Well, with the bee's knees, it proved to be a little difficult. The damage was very low and it was taking forever to kill these guys. And my main issue was that I did not have a dash. So once Spasmatism got down to its second phase, it made it really hard to dodge him. And because of that, I eventually died to Spasmatism. Then on the next night, it tells me that it's going to be a terrible night. So I guess it's round 2. This one actually goes better. I actually end up killing Spasmatism and Rhett is down to its final phase, but I get split in 2 very quickly afterwards. I then made an artificial corruption biome so that I could get some ebon koi, and after that kerfuffle, I decided to fight the twins again. Hopefully this time we can actually defeat it. I start laying into it with my bee's knees, doing what I do best, until Spasmatism is down to its second phase. Now I just have to keep my distance, and obviously the lack of a dash is making this quite difficult. And eventually Red Naze's lasers knock me into Spasmatism's flames, and that kills me. I then collected a bunch of rotten chunks so that I could fight the Eater Worlds and get a worm scarf. And then I once again spawned the twins, and I died brutally. But this time, not by the twins. I actually died to the hand of a tortoise, or leg, I guess. Shell? I actually decided to make a proper arena because I was fighting in a really stupid spot. And then I fight the twins again, and die by an eye laser. Once again, I fight the twins and die to Spaz's flames. This is not going well. Turns out that the bee's knees isn't the best weapon against the twins. Who would have thought? I fight it again and die to Spasmatism. I fight it again and die to Spasmatism. Then a goblin army spawns, so I have to deal with these suckers before I can spawn Skeletron Prime. That's right, I switched over to Skeletron Prime. Why did I decide to fight Skeletron Prime over the twins? I'm not quite sure, but it was actually going pretty well. I know how to fight Skeletron Prime. He's actually pretty easy to me, and I should probably fight him first more often. But I just keep shooting my bee's knees at him, keeping my distance, doing damage to the hands, and there's not much else to say, but I defeated Skeletron Prime with a bit of time to spare. But that was much easier than the twins. The problem is the mech bosses don't really drop anything I can use except for hollow bars, and I simply just don't have enough to do anything with them. I then fought the Destroyer and died brutally, and I fought him again and died brutally again. By having defeated Skeletron Prime, I went over to the jungle, the actual jungle, not the jungle that plagues my life, and I found a life fruit that I could go to the Shimmer and turn into an Aegis fruit for a little bit of extra defense. Now hopefully with this defense we can actually defeat the twins. I was wrong. I still am getting ruined by the twins, although I did get Spasmatism very low. I fought the twins again and died to Spasmatism once again. I mean, I'm a broken record at this point. It just keeps happening. But this time around, I actually defeated Spasmatism, and now all that's left is Retnazer. And I've gotten Retnazer down pretty low, but then he combos me so hard with his lasers. I don't know why exactly, and I died with him with 6,000 health left. That was a dagger. That hurt a lot. I then took a slight detour and decided to fight the Queen Slime. Now this fight is not too easy. I got her to second phase, but she ended up killing me. I fought her again, and this time it was going pretty well. I was keeping my distance, making sure the bees were killing the Queen Slime servants until Queen Slime got to second phase, and now I'm just keeping my distance, making sure I'm ducking and weaving between the projectiles. And she's super low, but I'm not looking too healthy, and the Queen Slime has been defeated, and I died right as she did. And so that gave me 2 armor pieces that I wanted, but the unfortunate thing about the Queen Slime is you have to defeat her multiple times to get the full set. So that's exactly what I did. I beat her a second time and got the pieces that I needed, and I also got a new mount. Now we have a new set of armor, and I'm going to use this against the twins because this set of armor actually gives you a dash, and since I'm not letting myself use the Shield of Cthulhu, it is the only way I can dash, at least for now. And the mobility is so much better. I'm able to stay away from the twins so much easier. It's insane how much one dash can change a fight so drastically. So I just keep whittling them down, doing as much damage with the bee's knees as possible, and I'm able to actually keep my distance from Spasmatism's flames much easier. It feels fantastic. I can also just dodge right out of the way of his dashes, and Spasmatism has been defeated, and now all that's left is Retnazer. And I mean, Retnazer is just textbook at this point. I'm just dashing between his lasers, making light work of this boss, and the twins have finally been defeated after so many attempts.
Finally. All I needed was a freaking dash.
And now only one mechanical boss remains, and I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to defeat it. With attempts like this where I'm getting destroyed instantly, I have no idea. But I did make hallowed armor with the hallowed bars that I did get. I then did some mimic farming and got a bee cloak. Now, I decided that I could just cheese this boss by using the star cloak method where I'm a bit above the destroyer and just let the stars rain down with a slime statue and just kill him with the star cloak. And it worked like a charm. The destroyer had been defeated with the star cloak and the jungle grows restless. But to be honest with you, I was not satisfied with that. I don't like cheesing when I don't have to. So instead of using a star cloak, I decided to go down and mine some chlorophyte while I was there, and I mined some titanium, which I then shimmered into orichalcum and made a full orichalcum set. Now orichalcum helps a ton with the destroyer. Because the petals pierce infinitely, I'm able to use them to do much more damage to the destroyer. Now the problem with this is that probes spawn very quickly, and they quickly overwhelmed me. But this time around I'm using a lot more defense and making sure that I can tank hits, and it's going a lot smoother. I'm taking out the probes without taking too much damage. I'm staying away from the destroyer's head, making sure the orichalcum petals are piercing straight through the destroyer. All I have to do is connect my bees into the destroyer and the petals will do the work. And it was working like a charm. I mean, I was destroying him. After a bit, the probes really whittled down and they're really not that much of an issue anymore. I did decide to fight this on a full moon, so there were werewolves, which is quite annoying. It didn't really affect anything too much. And I defeated the destroyer a second time, but this time actually legitimately without cheesing it. I then went around looking for my final life fruits, and then the pirates spawn. These guys are kind of annoying, but at least I have a weapon that I can do some damage to them, I guess, a little bit. I'm still using a pre-hard mode weapon, keep in mind. Eventually a flying Dutchman comes out and I'm just doing like no damage to it, and eventually I die. But after a long and painful fight, the pirates have finally been defeated. And after finishing up my life fruit hunt, I cleared out an arena for Plantera, which I actually used the same place where I beat the queen bee, a big open beehive. And now it's time to spawn Plantera. Is this arena big enough? I'm not entirely convinced, but you know what? Why the hell not? Let's try. Now, I've fought this boss with weaker weapons. Honestly, the damage here isn't terrible. Now, I decided to try and use the bee traps a little bit to maybe do some extra damage. It really didn't do that much. It was not worth it at all. But yeah, I've done worse against Plantera. This damage isn't awful. It's something, but yeah, it's not great. This fight's taking forever. The bees are doing like 1 to 2 damage. The contact is like 20 to 70 damage, but yeah, the bees aren't doing anything. And after a long-winded first phase, I finally whittled her down to second phase. Now this is where it gets tricky because this is going to take a long time and second phase is much harder than first. But I have just enough space to kite her and make sure that I don't take too much damage. I am wearing turtle armor, which obviously means I'm doing much less damage, but it means I take much less damage. And finally, Plantera has been defeated. That was a very long-winded fight. And Plantera actually drops the one other weapon I can use in this playthrough, the wasp gun. This is the only other bee weapon. Technically, they're wasps, but we'll count it. They look like bees. Now, it's a magic weapon, so I'm going to have to switch my whole class to mage all of a sudden. And it's not known as the best weapon in the game. Honestly, it's good at crowd control and it's good at killing a bunch of enemies, but it's kind of weak for single targets. But it was really nice that Plantera dropped it first try and I didn't have to beat it again. I then made a celestial emblem and I went over to the post-Plantera dungeon with no mana boosts, no mana armor, in an attempt to get some ectoplasm. I kill a few paladins and bone lees. A blue armored bones dropped a jungle key, which I guess I'm kind of surprised it took this long to get one, but it's useless. I got a few tabbies, but no black belt.
Another tabby, dude. That's 4 tabbies.
I ended up getting a paladin's shield before I even get a black belt. And eventually, I finally got the black belt and made some master ninja gear. Now, the wasp gun with the specter armor is actually doing some decent damage. Got a sorcerer emblem, a celestial emblem, and then the pirates decided to spawn again, which is really annoying, but this time, I have a weapon that can actually destroy them, so they're going to regret their life choices. They are not going to steal my booty. Now it's time to find the lizard temple to fight the golem. Now, traversing my way around the temple, around all these hive blocks, is kind of cringe, but eventually I make my way into it. The lizard temple is actually like kind of green. It's weird looking. And one of the bees from my wasp gun decided to spawn the queen bee on its own volition. Fantastic. And a spiky ball trap is killing me while I'm fighting her and I end up dying. So let's try that again. And there's more bee spawns and more queen bee spawns. And after destroying the queen bee population, it's now time to fight, that's right, the torch god. Yeah, I decided to fight the torch god. I wanted the right biome torches for this fight. And now it's time to fight the golem. Now the wasp gun was kind of shredding him. The wasps were hitting all his parts, destroying his face. Although they didn't really give me a whole lot of space to work with in this arena. They gave me not much at all. There's no vertical space here. But that's fine. Golem is easy. I just had to keep dashing back and forth, continuing to shoot my wasps. And eventually his head detaches from his body. And then very soon after, the golem falls to me. That pathetic little slime ball. He is nothing. Even with the odds turned against me with a smaller arena. Now it's time to fight the lunatic cultist. This boss should be no problem. Although, once he spawns his clones, my wasp gun decided to go into the wrong one and spawn spawn a dragon. Big mistake. But when the next one came around, I made sure to quickly use my bee's knees because I could actually control where those go, and crisis averted. I just have to keep doing that. I continue to do damage and making sure that I'm hitting the right lunatic cultist when he clones himself. But once he does it again, my bees quickly hit the wrong one, and there's a dragon once again. But the dragon gets absolutely shredded by my wasp gun. It's really no problem. I then shot the wrong one again, and there are now 3 clones of him. And then I hit the wrong one again. This situation is where this boss fight gets quickly out of hand. And so I actually died to the lunatic cultist, which doesn't happen much. But these wasps were sabotaging me. You don't understand. They were sabotaging me. I kind of forgot about some other bosses, so I decided to fight the Empress of Light. How could I forget about her? Now, the damage isn't too bad. I've seen worse. Mage is obviously annoying in the fact that I have to be conscious about my mana usage, but you know, I just press one button when I'm out of mana. It's pretty simple. I don't use the mana flower because, what, you can't press one button? Mage uses when they have to press a button. Am I right, gamers? I just continued using my wasp gun. It's homing, so I don't really even have to aim too much, although aiming ahead of her is preferred. I just keep doing damage to her, pumping her with my bees. As the beekeeper, it's what I do. The bees don't command me, I command them. They don't attack me anymore. The bees are one with me. Eventually, the Empress Light gets the second phase, and I mean, this boss is no problem for me. I've got a second phase before halfway through the night, so time should be of no issue. Also, I have the Spectre Hood, which allows me to lifesteal in a pinch, so I can just switch over to the hood if I need a bunch of health. This obviously means I have less mana, which is quite annoying, and I do much less damage, but the lifesteal is very epic. And I just keep pumping her and dodging where I can, slipping through her attacks, and the Empress of Light has been defeated with only a wasp gun. And the reason I fought her was purely for the soaring insignia. I mean, the wings would have been nice, but I didn't get them. And now I decided to fight Duke Fishron. Now, apparently you can spawn him in the ocean even though it's honey. Now, Duke should be fine with Master Ninja gear and a homing weapon. The damage isn't phenomenal, but it's not bad. I continue keeping my distance, dashing when he dashes. I get him down to second phase. A Sharknado spawns on me and does quite a lot of damage. The one problem with being a mage is that you take a lot of damage. You take a lot of damage and you just don't do as much damage as summoners do. I don't really know why you'd be a mage besides for fun or out of no other option like me. Duke Fishron gets to its final phase. It keeps disappearing and dashing into me. And when I say dashing into me, I mean dashing into me because he dashed into me multiple times and I got ruined. We challenge him again, get him down to the final phase once again, and I die again. Okay, this fight might be harder than I thought. Or maybe I'm just bad. I get him down to the final phase once again. These dashes are doing mad damage to me. I don't know why I'm struggling so hard right now. At Duke Fishron, usually he's no problem, and I'll do this without even getting hit sometimes. But here, it was actually causing me issues. And I died again with him down to 2,000 health. I challenge him again, and I get him down to as little as 350 health. This is getting insane now. I don't know why I'm struggling so hard at Duke Fishron. This doesn't usually happen, I swear. I'm just having an off day. I died to Duke again. Mind you, these fights are kind of long. These fights are taking minutes, and me dying at the end is just, it's heartbreaking. It hurts. I died again. I get him down to final phase again. I'm doing damage. I get him down to as little as 74 health before I die. Freaking 70 health! This is insane. He was on 74 health. He was one shot. And finally, I get him down to final phase. I'm dodging where I need to. I'm learning from my mistakes. And finally, Duke Fishron has been defeated. I don't know why it was that hard. It's not usually that hard, but there we have it. And now it's time to fight the lunatic cultist. And as soon as I spawn him, a solar eclipse spawns. Just typical. That's just typical. So while I'm fighting him, there's solar eclipse enemies on the floor. It's just so great. I just love it. And there's vampires flying at me. It's so epic. I learned from my past mistakes and I shot the right lunatic cultist every time. I made sure to use the bee's knees to single out the correct lunatic cultist, hoping that a random rogue bee won't hit the wrong one. He then spawned the clones earlier than I anticipated, and the wyvern spawned at the same time. He just wanted to jump in on the fun, and you know, along with solar eclipse and lunatic cultist, just add on to it. But I hit the right one on the next one and on the next one, and just like that, the lunatic cultist has been defeated. And now it's just the celestial pillars. Now the wasp gun makes this not too hard. As I said, it's pretty good at crowd control, so it doesn't have too much trouble killing killing them. And with my Spectre Hood, I can just leech life if I need to. I get the pillar shield down. I die once, but finally kill the Stardust pillar. I then headed over to the solar pillar. I'm gonna cheese it, but I decided to cheese it near a sky island, which meant that enemies were just spawning up there and they killed me multiple times. But eventually I got it right and I cheesed the pillar to completion, and the solar pillar has been defeated. Now I go over to the vortex pillar. This one I just brute force. I go in, kill the enemies, die, kill a bunch more, destroy the pillar, and that's that. And now it's the final pillar, the nebula pillar. Probably the hardest one, but I end up actually doing it without dying once. The enemies were fine. The wasp gun dealt with them perfectly. And I destroy the pillar, and now the Moon Lord approaches. Will the wasp gun be able to defeat the Moon Lord with no issues, or will this take multiple attempts? Now this is a pre-golem weapon against the Moon Lord, which means it's not going to be great, but honestly, I've done worse. I'm chipping away at his hands and shooting at the eye whenever it's open. Textbook Moon Lord stuff. Now a big problem with the Moon Lord fight is that he disables you from doing any leeching. So my strategy of using the hood is completely negated because of the leech debuff. And I've whittled him down quite a bit, but I end up hitting the top of a sky island right at the worst point when the death ray comes out, and that ends up killing me. So super angry at that stupid sky island, I decided to clear it out with a bunch of dynamite, and I spawned the Moon Lord once again. Same strategy here. I'm just shooting the eyes, shooting his attempt to leech my life, and shooting the top eye when it's open. I don't want him to get heals off, and my homing weapon does a good job at destroying those most of the time. Sometimes the bees decide not to attack it. Now this is taking a long time. I'm just shooting this wasp gun, regenning my mana or using a mana potion, and then just repeating. I've got both the hand eyes very low at this point, and I don't want to destroy them because the top eye is not quite there yet, and I don't want the true eye of Cthulhu's out yet. So I keep going, but eventually my bees actually destroy both the hand eyes without my permission. They went against me. I may be the beekeeper, but sometimes they just don't listen to me. They have minds of their own. They have free will. It's the way I like it. But eventually the top eye has been carved out, and now it's just the core. I then get hit by some eyeballs, and it freaking ruins me. I get down to as little as 30 health, but I realized that I don't have the leech debuff, so I switch to the hood and get as much health as I can until that debuff shows up, and now I'm in a much healthier range. I keep my distance with the Master Ninja gear and my soaring insignia, dodging where I can, using the whole world as my platform. I destroy the leeches whenever I can if the bees decide to listen to me and actually go where I want them to, and after a long 6-minute fight with the Moon Lord, he has been defeated, and we are the victors of Terraria Master Mode, not the bees, but with only bees. Very stupid idea. I don't know why I did it, but yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys had fun watching, because I sure didn't have fun with this playthrough. It was dreadful. I hate not the bees. This sucked, especially in the beginning. It took so long to get anywhere because I had to do not the bees without a weapon up until Queen Bee. I hope you guys enjoyed my suffering. If you did, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers. Don't forget. Appreciate you all. See you in the next video.